Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. We return to the worlds of Final Fantasy today at the start of our next series, Final Fantasy with no shops. Which, for our purposes, a shop is any place you exchange gil or goods for an item. Which should be pretty simple in FF2, but I want to establish that early as it may get a bit more dubious as I explore later entries in the series. And we're starting in FF2 because FF2 is kind of weird already, so this should be very fun to break. Having completed the intro, I immediately leave town. This place has a bunch of shops, but I can't buy anything. Notably, an inn is not a shop, so I do have access to full heals in towns, but everything else is completely out of my reach. And that means, at least for now, I'm stuck with each character's default weapon and no magic. Oh, and I will be popping in the bestiary many times throughout this run to see if any of the new enemies I encounter might drop something actually useful. My recollection is there isn't very much in this game that really does. But, absent shops, I'm going to be limited to what I can find. North to Finn to meet up with Scott, who gives me a ring, and then dies, as is typical. Then run all the way back to Altair to give Hilda the bad news. But this gives me the good news of recruiting Minwu, who has a huge number of restorative spells. I really wish I could steal these from Minwu and put them on someone else, but sadly this game does not work that way. I can steal his staff and give it to Maria, so she has a better weapon type than bows. I really am going to be relying on stealing items from all the fourth party members, particularly for armor, which I will struggle to acquire. Still no enemies with worthwhile drops? Is this just not really a thing in this game? In Salamand, we get info from Yosef that the mithril we want is in a nearby cave. But we also need to rescue the villagers while we're there. So, quick canoe ride and it's time for a cave. Which mostly has the same enemies as the overworld and none drop anything I want. Sag. At least I have Minwu along for healing and buffing. My magic access in this game is going to be very limited by not being able to purchase anything. Huzzah! A single spell. Fire. I'll be teaching this to Maria immediately. Strictly speaking, physical attacks will tend to deal more damage, but I need to use fire extensively to get her MP higher for later on when I, hopefully, have some better spells. I'll have some better spells later, right? Right? Oh, and a teleport tome. That can go on Guy. He won't be using any other spells in the game, and being able to teleport out of dungeons is super convenient. Okay, first boss time. Random Soldier. Minwu, please buff the party. Ouch! Okay, maybe I should have leveled up some more, because my entire party is not doing that much damage. I mean, Maria dealt some decent damage with fire before she ran out of MP. I really should remember to actually level up before this fight, because it always ends up being more difficult than it should be. Good thing Minwu has healing, and blink, and protect. So, while my damage is really bad, the sergeant isn't actually doing any damage in return, so the fight is slow but kind of inevitable. This gives me mithril. I'll be taking this back to Altair to unlock mithril weapons in the shops that I can't buy. Oh, you know what? I just remembered. Commenters on prior videos pointed out that unarmed attacks are actually busted in this game, because of how they calculate the attack power of your weapon. I will need to keep Virion leveling up sword skills for later, but there's no reason Guy can't go unarmed. Hopefully comments were right about this. I'll work on getting fire and unarmed leveled up as I head up to my next destination, Bofsk. And into the sewers below the city, and yeah, unarmed strikes are doing real good damage. Not quite as much as dual-wielding swords, but my fists are half the level of Virion's sword skill, so Guy has time to catch up. Anyway, the Dreadnought has been completed despite our best efforts of doing absolutely nothing, so a bunch of towns have been attacked. Good thing we can pick up the convenient pass left behind. We'll need that to get into the Dreadnought later. Back in Altair, and my mission now is to take down the Dreadnought, but that requires completing several steps before we have a chance of accomplishing it. First, time to run back over to Salamand, where Yosef will finally join the party. Then back to Mithril Cave to get the snowcraft. This lets me cross the snow in this one area. Why is this the only area with snow in the entire world? What is the climate like on this planet? Anyway, into the snow cavern because I need to retrieve a goddess spell. And yeah, comments were 100% correct. Unarmed attacks are pretty cracked, especially in a run like this where my weapon access is comparatively limited. Oh, a blizzard tome? I guess I'll teach that to Maria. Honestly, it probably isn't worth leveling up multiple spells, so I'll likely stick to fire, but more options can't hurt, especially when getting Maria's MP up is the actual point of casting spells at all. I do wish I had some white magic though. Anyway, next boss time, the Adamantoise, and I have no healing magic or defensive magic, and it simply doesn't matter. Between fire and basic attacks, this boss goes down very quickly. After the mess that was the sergeant fight, it is always a bit of a relief when Adamantoise goes down really easily. And then the next boss, Borgin, who dies in one attack because he is a chump. Yosef dies, but that's fine, he wasn't really that useful to me anyway, other than stealing his armor for the other party members. Thank you for your service, your hat is very cool. Got a spell in hand, I can take the long walk back to Kashwan Keep. Here I meet up with Gordon, who is also here to grab the Sunfire to destroy the Dreadnought. And Gordon has some very shiny equipment. I'll be having that. Thank you. I was worried about armor access for my characters. Maybe stealing from the 4th party members will keep the party covered. Majestic, a cure tome. That goes straight on Maria. A reliable way to heal my party is absolutely essential. It is going to take some time before my cure levels and stats are up to the point where cure is actually healing anything approaching a decent amount of HP, but still, good to have. Furion is dead. That's not great. I don't really want to use a Phoenix down. Those are in short supply. But I also don't want to leave and come back. You know what, Guy hits hard enough. I can probably get through this area without Furion being alive. Hopefully. Alright, it's next boss time, Red Soul, who can theoretically devastate the party with strong magical attacks. However, strong as a descriptor is debatable, and Guy two-shots the boss before it has a chance to cast a single spell. Alright, so yep, I was very right to not leave and come back. That was hilarious. And now I have the Sunfire, I need to destroy the Dreadnought. Which is good, because Sid and Hilda have been kidnapped and it's up to me to save them. But first, I need to head back to town to resurrect Furion. This isn't a solo character run, though maybe someday. Anyway, into the Dreadnought, get in with the pass, and it's time to loot the place. And that gets me some new shiny armor, like the Thief Gloves and the Giant's Helm, which are very nice improvements for my characters. Then chuck some Sunfire in the engine and make a daring escape. And that means the Dreadnought has been destroyed and the day is not really saved. The king dies and Scott must leave the party to help lead Altair, which is fine because again, I just need him for his equipment. But next up is to investigate the dragoons that the Emperor claims to have wiped out, which means hopping on a boat with a bunch of strangers, which goes how you'd expect, except I am very strong and these pirates are not. Leela joins the party and I can steal all her equipment to give to my actually important characters. I do briefly entertain farming drops from around the Dreadnought's prior location, but the chance of actually getting anything I want is so low, I'm just not gonna bother. Sail over to Castle Deast, and it's time to loot another place. This does get me some tomes, but I don't think I care about any of these spells. They do have a good supply of status carrying items, which should be very useful. Status healing is one thing I just don't really have at all. And into Deast Cavern to grab the pendant. The enemies in here do not mess around, and Furion drops to an attack, which then means I need to make a globe-trotting trip to find a functioning shrine so I don't waste a Phoenix down. Geez, I was not expecting Resurrection to be so far away. Anyway, after chatting with the dragon, it's time to head back into Deast Cavern to explore it more thoroughly, and face down the next boss, the Chimeras. The Chimeras can deal pretty hefty damage all around, certainly more than my basic heal spell can keep up with. Good thing Guy's attacks have continued to scale. Seriously, Guy is dealing so much damage. Commenters were not kidding when they said unarmed attacks were busted. That's a lot of damage per attack for this point in the game, which I appreciate. This fight can be tricky without big damage output. And then back to Altair to discover the princess we rescued isn't really the princess, but a dangerous Lamia, prompting another boss fight. Lamia can inflict a bunch of dangerous status effects. In theory, in practice she dies too fast to be of any actual concern. So that's done then. However, that means we still need to rescue Hilda, who is being wagered as the prize at the Emperor's Colosseum. So, time for another long-distance boat ride, and first on the enemy list is the Behemoth, which can deal big damage and has decent HP. Doesn't matter though, as Guy is way too strong for any of that to actually matter. Thank you for the rescue, Paul. Time to do more looting as we escape the prison beneath the Colosseum. And then rescue Hilda, but for real this time, which means it's time to finally retake Finn from the Empire. Which means more looting. Not that there's anything here too useful. I do get to steal Leela's equipment from her again. Thank you for the new armor, Leela. I will be putting it to good use. Hello, did that chest enemy just drop a haste tome? For me? You really shouldn't have. That's the only other tome I could really need. I guess Blink would be nice too, but haste is the best spell in the game because it makes physical attacks stronger. Oh, this is gonna be a fun endgame, isn't it? Gonna give that to Maria immediately, and the only thing I will want her to cast forever is haste. Both to get it leveled up as quickly as possible, and because haste stacks, because of course it does. Anyway, next boss time. Kodos is kind of strong. I mean, he's not, is he? Haste boosted punches take him down in 2 attacks. That haste tome may have fundamentally broken an already very broken game. But I didn't buy it, and that's what matters. Anyway, Paul tells us how to access Finn's hidden treasury, which is actually in the next dungeon in the game, filled with treasures that have a lot of items that are somewhat useful. I mean, any status healing items are great. I still don't have any reliable way to heal status effects. And yep, that's the whole party blinded, which is real bad. I do have some eye drops, and by some, I of course mean 4, and I'd prefer to save those for emergencies. The enemies in this game do not mess around when it comes to inflicting status effects on the party. Oh right, the Rios. Yeah, that feels right. I guess now is an emergency. Because I can't waste any time killing these jerks, not when a single bad breath can kill my entire party. And beating them gets me a knife. Well, that was a waste of my time and 3 eye drops. Hopefully I won't come to regret that. Good news is this dungeon has no boss, so I can just leave. With the white mask, I can now head over to Missidia to place it on this statue to do whatever it is this actually does. Then sail over to the Tropical Island, another dungeon, which frankly has the same enemies I've already seen. Could one of you please have a blink tome on your drop tables? That would be great. This dungeon does have some other tomes and treasure chests, but honestly none worth spending time leveling up. Not when my only mage is really just a haste bot. Buffing spells really were way too strong in the early Final Fantasies. Guy, don't get blinded, you idiot. I only have 1 eye drop left. It's fine. I've haste, and Furion can deal pretty good damage regardless. And yeah, the bighorns do hit pretty hard, but I have haste to help take them out quickly. And Cura's reached level 9, so it's healing a decent amount. It would be more, but Maria's spirit isn't actually very good. Black mask in hand, it's time for the Cave of Missidia. I forgot to rest and cure blind. Whatever, fine, I'll just use an eye drop. I don't feel like going any further out of my way. Uh-oh, that's curse. That's a problem. I have like 1 cross, which will not be enough, and curse lasts after combat. Well, good thing this area doesn't have a boss, so I can deal with curse by resting at an inn. This cave otherwise has a bunch of chests that are mostly worthless. I mean, status curing items are good, but everything else is worthless. Okay, let's get a good night's sleep at Paloom and, So resting at an inn doesn't cure curse? Good to know. That is bad, though. But not insurmountable. Through the power of killing my friends in combat and resurrecting them, I can in fact cure curse. It just takes a bit more work than I'd prefer. Okay, curse cured and everyone back to full, let's get back to the actual progression, shall we? Which means sinking my boat and getting swallowed by a big worm. And now I can recruit Ricard, which means more equipment to be stolen and given to the rest of the party. Hooray for more armor. Leviathan itself doesn't have anything too exciting, and it's next boss time. Roundworm is a pretty durable boss that can hit for a good chunk of damage. As usual, it doesn't really matter that much though, because hasted attacks means the fight is over in 2 rounds. Alright, let's pick up the pace, because this is not going to get any more difficult. And that means it's time for the elemental floors of the Missidia Tower. And the first boss, Fire Gigas, which starts off strong by ambushing the party. Unfortunately, it chooses to use that advantage to only attack Guy, who has just a stupid amount of HP, and then hasted attacks end the fight. Ice Gigas actually attacks a party member with a more reasonable amount of HP, meaning I have to actually use Cure. And that is the most interesting part of this fight. Goodbye, Ice Gigas. Hello, Thunder Gigas. I'm not really sure why this Gigas seems so much stronger than the other 2. I mean, it makes no difference in this challenge because haste, but it's definitely stronger than the other 2, right? Hello, Ice Dragon. I would like the treasure chest you have stored here, and oh wow, you can actually deal some pretty big damage. You've managed to kill Maria. Considering how easy everything in this game has been thus far, I'm gonna count that as an achievement. And I have enough spare Phoenix Downs, I'm just gonna use one. I can't imagine I'll need that many more. At the top of the tower, Minwu destroys himself to unseal Ultima, which you probably shouldn't have bothered, I'm not gonna be using it at any point. At least it gets me access to these crystals that boost my stats. That's probably worth it. Not necessary, mind you, but useful. Ultima Tome in hand, never to be used, and it's time to deal with the Cyclone problem, which means calling forth a wyvern from this mirror so we can fly into the heart of the storm. This dungeon doesn't really have anything interesting to deal with other than another dragon. Seriously, even as strong as you get in this game, the dragons don't mess around. I even managed to die because I went into the fight with Maria having no HP. Once I hop back in, but can actually cast haste, the fight works out in my favor. Once I leave, rest at an inn, and come back so Maria can actually spam haste, there we go, dragon dead. And it gave me garbage. Alright, next up is the Emperor and his guards, which shockingly do not manage to put up much of a fight. While the dragons are a bit over-tuned for the dungeons you find them in, intentionally, the regular fights cannot stand up to haste and regular attacks. Oh, you know what? Where is the blood sword again? Oh, it's in Paul's secret stash. That's only accessible before completing the Cyclone? When was my last save? Oh, good. I quick-saved in the last room of the Cyclone. Let me just leave here and grab this, and complete that section again. And yeah, that combination of blood sword and the haste spell does mean the game is already over, but we may as well go through the motions and see it through to the end. The Emperor is dead, but the Dark Knight is still alive, causing trouble, so I chat with Cid, who dies. Then I can run over and grab his airship so I can finally fly around the map freely. And my only destination is Castle Pandaemonium. The castle itself has nothing I want, because there is nothing I really could want at this point. And it has no boss, so Emperor wasn't actually dead, Dark Knight was Leon, who now joins the party, and it's time to dive into the final section of the game. Just as soon as I steal all of Leon's armor to use on the actually important party members. And that starts with the Jade Passage, which has no real items of interest and no bosses, which means it's time to skip right past it and into the real final dungeon, Pandemonium. This area does have a few bosses, and while all but the Emperor are skippable, I may as well do a few to get some fun items I don't need. First on the list is Zombie Borgin, who is a zombie, and therefore inverts the effects of the blood sword. Whoops! So Furion dies immediately. Good thing hasted punches are more than enough to punch through Borgin's HP and deliver me the Genji gloves. Next up is Tiamat, who is not undead, and so dies in 2 turns to give me the Genji helm. Then Beelzebub, who dies in a few attacks and gives me the Genji armor. This completes my Genji set, but there is still one boss left to bully. Astaroth, who guards the ribbon. Alright, I've spent enough time I don't need to bullying bosses. Emperor, time to get a taste of Blood Sword. And to be fair, the Emperor is no joke. He also has a blood effect on his basic attacks. It can very easily take out Guy in 1 hit, and heal a decent chunk of health. Still doesn't matter, Emperor's spells don't deal enough damage to one-shot Furion. I have some eye drops left to cure the blindness Emperor tries to inflict to save himself, and Furion can end the fight. He was the only party left alive, but he was also the only party member I needed. And that was Final Fantasy II, completed without using shops. And honestly, that was about as easy as I expected. While buying items can be useful, especially for status healing, it is by no means required, and the strongest equipment in the game is your bare hands and then the blood sword from a treasure chest. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.